Now, technology and society are always changing with more efficient ways to do jobs and simple activities. It's important for us as individuals and businesses to keep up with the disruption. But what is disruption? Well, author Gihan Pereira looks into this in his new book, as well as how we can prepare ourselves for an uncertain future full of change and innovation. He joins us this morning to tell us all about his new book, Disruption by Design, but also to tell us more about our future shopping habits. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Yeah, thanks very much, Fiona. Great to be here.
So the big question, what is disruption?
That is a big question, isn't it? And you've actually used the word already. It's about change. So everything is about change. Our world is changing really fast in our personal lives, in our professional lives. And we hear a lot about disruption. And disruption is when you let change happen. And then you're just sitting around waiting, the change happens and you get disrupted. But the other side of that is that if you're proactive and you're innovative, then you can lead the change. So disruption and innovation are exactly the same thing. It's just disruption when change happens to you. It's innovation when you do it yourself.
So now you recently released a book called Disruption by Design. Could you tell us a bit more about what you delve into your book?
Yeah, sure. And it's a by design thing that's really important. So it's not saying you have to disrupt everything around you, but it's about disrupting yourself, because there's a lot of change happening on the outside. And for all of us, in our personal lives, in our business lives, in our work lives, what we have to do is disrupt ourselves, to change what used to work, because what used to work doesn't necessarily work anymore. And so you look around to see what are the best things that we can do now to be fit for the future. And sometimes it means throwing away things that have worked for us for a long time and really disrupting ourselves, because if you don't do it, then somebody else is going to come along and disrupt you. So that's what the book's about. And I talk about three things in the book. So one, having the skill of foresight, which is looking into the future and being able to understand some of the trends that we're going to face. The second thing is talent. It's about you and the people you surround yourself with to go into that future. And the third part is taking action. So not just sitting there waiting for change to happen, but how do you take action even in an uncertain world?
Now, when I hear the word disruption, I feel it's normally used in a negative sense, like, oh, you've disrupted someone, but you've spoken about it very positively. Why do we have such a negative connotation with it?
Yeah, that's the danger of that. That's the danger of that word disruption, that everyone thinks of it in this negative term. But the word disruption, and that it became popular when Clay Christensen wrote a book, and he wrote an article for Harvard Business Review, and then a book which he called Disruptive Innovation. And he was talking about these little businesses that were innovators and disrupting industries. And now everyone forgets about the innovation side of that. So we call it disruption, but everyone forgets that what he was really talking about was disruptive innovation. And really they're the same thing. As I said, if you're the innovator, if you're willing to be proactive and take action, and this doesn't mean you have to create a new iPhone. It can be just small innovations along the way that are going to change the way that you do things in the past and change the lives of people around you. And the key is to not rely on what's worked in the past. A lot of the things that worked for you may still work, but you shouldn't assume that's the case.
So why did you decide to release a book to help people become better, prepare ourselves for an uncertain future?
You know what, Fiona? So I'm a futurist. So part of what I do is I look at trends, I look at what's coming up in the future, and also what's already out there, but it may be in other countries or other industries or other regions or other generations. So I look at trends and help my clients and people understand what's coming up in the future. And you know what? I thought the whole word disruption was a little bit like 5 years ago. Everyone was talking about disruption. And I thought, well, maybe we've passed that. But it's not the case. People are still talking about and getting worried about what it means for their business, for their job, for their lives with all this change happening. So I thought it's worthwhile putting some my ideas into a book so that people get some idea of that disruption is not really all that scary. There are certain things that you can do, and that the book is full of 50 ideas for how you deal with disruption and change. And they're really simple ideas. Some of them are really simple and practical.
And then in the book, you talk a bit about current disruptions in our societies, like, for example, Netflix and Uber. Could you tell us a bit more about this?
Yes, I reckon Netflix is a really good example of a business that just went on the front foot all the time. So Netflix, we know it now, it provides streaming movies. It provides movies in your home for a small price per month. But it didn't start that way. So when Netflix started, it was a DVD rental company. So it was competing with companies like Blockbuster. So you, instead of going to your Blockbuster store and renting a DVD, Netflix looked at what's the biggest problem that customers have, what do they not like, and of course what they don't like is returning the movie after they watched it. So Netflix decided to do this mail order service, and you'd order the DVD that you want to watch, it would arrive with a reply pay package, and then once you're done, you pop it in the post and it's done. So that's how Netflix started. And then it changed. Then we started getting better quality broadband internet, and it was possible to then start downloading and streaming movies. And so Netflix decided, well, that DVD thing, that's not going to last, so let's change. Let's see what customers want now, and we'll provide this new service that provides streaming. And so you could then rent DVDs, or movies rather, one at a time. And then Netflix said, well, why don't we provide a monthly service, so like an all-you-can-watch service? And so they provided that service. And the movie companies initially, they were very happy because this was another opportunity for them to license their content through this medium, which they didn't have before. But then they got a bit careful because they realized that Netflix was eating into their profits. So they stopped licensing their movies to Netflix. So Netflix is now a movie company in its own right. So it's set up a movie studio. It has one of the biggest movie studios in LA, and they're creating their own content because what Netflix has done is they always looked at what does the customer want, what problem can be solved for them, and how can we do that. So it's a long way now. If you look back to where Netflix started as a DVD rental company, it just doesn't do that anymore. But they were willing to change. They were willing to adapt. They weren't willing to say, let's do faster DVD rentals. They said, let's look at what the customers now want, and we'll shift and we'll change so that we can be ready for the customer.
And now they're one of the biggest streaming monopolies out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And they were smart because they were willing to shift. And many businesses, many organizations, many industries, and even many people aren't willing to shift. So they keep doing what they've always done, and they hope that by doing it slightly better, that they're still going to be able to survive. And some of them do, but customers have changed. And so if you are still trying to serve the same old customer you've always served in the past, well, that might work for a while, but those customers are disappearing. And there's a new brand of customer with a new set of problems. And if you can't solve those customer problems, there'll be somebody else that comes along who will.
So you're listening to The Mag, and right now we're speaking with Gahan Pereira about his book Disruption by Design. Now, Netflix and Uber aren't the only disruptions in our society. Shopping has also changed quite a lot. For example, online shopping, potential use of augmented reality to shop. Could you tell us a bit more about all of this?
Yeah, there's some amazing stuff happening, Fiona, in terms of shopping. And you're right, I remember a time when in the early days of the web, businesses were going, how can we make our online experience, shopping online, as good as walking into a retail store? But now it's turned the other way around. Now retail stores are saying, everyone's shopping online, how can we make our retail experience better so we can offer something that you can't get if you're shopping online? And one of those things is augmented reality. So augmented reality is, there's two things, augmented and virtual reality. Virtual reality is where you put on a headset and you go into this completely made-up world, this imaginary world that's been constructed for you. Augmented reality is where you are looking at the real world, and it's augmented. It gets additional information on it. So let me give you an example. So you could walk into a clothes shop, and there's this magic mirror in front of you, and you swipe on the mirror, and you can choose clothes that are available in the shop. And as you're standing there, you can see in the mirror what you would look like if you were wearing those clothes. So that's an example of augmented reality. So you don't have to try it on. You don't have to go to the dressing room and try it on. If you just want to see what it would look like first before you then go and try it on in the dressing room, you can do that just by swiping through the catalogue, and the mirror will show you what you look like. So that's a really good example of how retail stores are trying to differentiate. They're trying to be better than what you can get with the online experience.
So how will technologies like these change our purchasing habits in the future?
Yeah, so what will happen is that a lot of the friction of shopping is going to disappear or at least be reduced. So one of the big problems with shopping in a retail store is getting there. So you have to get in the car, you drive, you park, you walk in, you have to be served by somebody, and you're hoping that there's somebody there to serve you. And all of that's friction before you can actually buy the product. And then you go and buy it, you try it, you line up at the checkout, you pay, and then you walk out. If you can remove some of those steps, then that shopping experience will become so much better. So just like in a simple example, imagine going into your local supermarket and you just fill up your trolley with whatever you want, and then you just walk out. You don't have to pay, you don't have to scan your credit card anywhere. So that sounds like science fiction, but it's already happening. In the USA, Amazon has this already. So they're trialing this with a few shops, which they call Amazon Go. And you walk into the shop. As you walk in, a camera recognizes your face with artificial intelligence and facial recognition technology, and it knows who you are. And then it can track you as you're walking around the supermarket with your trolley. As you put things into the trolley, the cameras in the roof that know what you're putting in the trolley, and so it's automatically adding it to your on your phone. You've got the Amazon app, and so it's building up your list of what you're buying. And then you just walk out. And when it sees that you've walked out, it just charges it to your credit card, which is got on file. So it takes all the friction, or a lot of the friction, out of the shopping experience. So I think that's what's going to change for us, Fiona. Things like shopping and purchasing are going to become so much easier. We've already got, when was the last time you used a whole bunch of cash? Very rarely now. We quite often use credit cards. We use your watch or your phone to pay, and those are sort of things that are going to change the shopping experience.
Now, unfortunately, we have just about run out of time, but just to end, why is it important for us individually and as a community, or even business owners, to be more open and flexible when it comes to sudden change and disruption?
Yeah, I'm really glad you're finishing with this question, Fiona, because for all of us, we've got to take more responsibility now, because the rules have changed, and in many cases, there just aren't the same rules that used to exist. So previously, we would have waited for our governments to look after us. We would have waited for the company we worked for to look after our career. We'd have waited for our local community to look after us. And now that's changed. All of those things are falling down or fragmenting. So it's up to us to take responsibility for our future. And if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it for us. And you don't want the Facebooks or the Googles or the Amazons to determine exactly how you're going to live your life. Take some personal responsibility, be ready for change, and that's the best way to be fit for the future.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning and telling us all about the future and disruption and the future of shopping as well.
Thanks, my pleasure. Really glad to be part of it.
Thank you very much. That was Gahan Pereira, author of Disruption by Design, sharing with us about his new book, but also about the future and future technologies that will change how we shop and purchase.